My name is Lark Arden, 26 years old. The lilies at the church smelled like sugar and bleach, and the satin lining of my grandfather's coffin flashed each time the pallbearers shifted their grip. My Aunt Bernice cried the way stage lights burn, too bright, too hot, and only when someone was watching. When the service ended, she drifted toward me through the talkative fog of mourners, mascara trembling at the edges of her lashes like black rain about to fall. "It's just tragic how he left everything to that children's hospital," she said, grabbing my hands with a grief that felt rehearsed. $73 million to strangers, while his own blood gets nothing. Behind her, Uncle Clifford folded his arms in solemn agreement, a stone with a tie. I'd caught him earlier on the phone, griping about having to buy his own lunch after the service. Now he tilted his chin at me, the corners of his mouth pulled into a church-appropriate frown. "It's what your grandfather wanted," he said, the words smooth as a polished pew. "We need to respect the will." Respect. I tried the word on my tongue and found it tasteless. We walked from graveside to gravel, where the wind sheared the cemetery's tidiness and sent little torn petals spinning. The lawyer met us at the cars for the last indignity, a cardboard box with sentimental allocations, the crumbs of an estate that had already been swept clean. Bernice leaned in the way cats do when they smell something they won't eat. My name was written on an envelope in the lawyer's neat hand, and beneath it, wrapped in old linen, a cane. "A hand-carved stick?" Bernice snorted, too loud. "At least someone got something useful," she flashed teeth. "You can poke the elevator button at your studio from across the hallway." It was beautiful, though I held my face as if it wasn't. The wood, walnut I thought, had deepened to near black from years of oil and touch. The silver handle, shaped like a raven's head, caught a shard of sun and threw it back in a cold, precise glint. I curled my fingers around the shaft and felt little ridges where there shouldn't have been any, like the cane's smoothness had been carefully interrupted. "Practical," Clifford said, eyeing it, and then, oddly, the breast pocket of his suit, where a white envelope with a teal hospital logo peeked over the edge. "Don't make trouble, kid. Let the donation stand." "Of course," I said too quickly. The words slid out like a coin I hadn't meant to spend. That night, my studio apartment gathered the day into its single room. Streetlight on the blinds, the whisper of the radiator, the framed photo of Grandpa and me at a summer chess tournament when I was 12. I set the cane across my desk and switched on the lamp. The wood drank the light and offered back a slow sheen. When I ran my fingertips along the shaft again, the ridges, tiny, repeating, intentional, rose against my skin like Morse pulses. I angled the lamp, held my breath, and watched letters and symbols swim into view, faint as breath on glass. They formed a spiral, tighter toward the handle, looser toward the tip, like a raven's path caught in wood. Where ravens rest and memories keep, past the garden's thorny sweep. 7 stones mark sacred ground. What was lost shall now be found. Below, a string of numbers. 47.6372, 119.4265. Coordinates. My phone screen lit my hands blue as I typed them into a map. And there it was. Spokane, Washington. The old estate. His aviary where the ravens called my name the way birds make a joke of everything. The rose garden that could draw blood for days. The mansion scheduled, according to Clifford's funeral week dossier, for demolition. Next week. My pulse stuttered, then steadied into something bright and mean. I could see Grandpa hunched at his library table, the green-shaded lamp cutting a circle in the dark. We'd spent summers there, side by side, while late suns soaked the rugs, and the ravens clattered against their enclosure outside. Chess, ciphers, logic grids, the kind of riddles that feel like play until they save your life. "The mind is a muscle," he'd say, sliding his knight into a trap that wasn't. "Most people let it go soft. Not you. Promise me you'll keep it strong." I'd promised, distracted, small, sticky with lemonade. Not understanding a promise can be a key someone forges in your mouth. The will felt wrong from the first reading. Not the generosity, that was him, but the exclusion, the completeness of it, like a door sealed from both sides. Grandpa had paid my college tuition. He'd paid Mom's medical bills when the insurance company tried to pretend the word coverage was a metaphor. He'd slipped me grocery money during a winter when the bookstore cut my hours and the rent didn't bend. The man who did those things didn't forget his family overnight. My phone chimed, an unknown number, a single line. "Stop looking." Some secrets should stay buried. This is your only warning. I read it twice, then a third time, and felt my body go curiously light, as if everything that used to weigh me down, rent, debt, the simple, stupid hunger for approval, had fallen through a trapdoor. Somebody else knew about the cane, somebody who used the word buried as if they were talking about more than a body. I turned the phone face down and traced the cane's spiral again, letting the words unspool inside my head. Where ravens rest, the aviary, behind the rose garden. 7 stones, a circle, not a path. The old oak, Grandpa's chair under it. I could smell the place, the iron-sweet bite of roses, the damp shade that felt 10 degrees cooler than the cut lawn, the feather dust scent whenever a raven preened close enough to the fence. The hospital envelope in Clifford's pocket returned to me as a flicker of teal. Bernice's tears that stopped the exact second people turned away. The lawyer's overeager emphasis on how thoroughly the assets had been liquidated. The demolition date only days out. The way everybody wanted everything OVER. I said his name aloud, a childish thing at the edge of the night. Grandpa, what did you do? Outside, a raven, a city crow really, but tonight I let it be what I needed, shouted from a wire and fell silent. I pulled the cane to me and peered closer. The spiral's tiny cuts varied across letters by fractions, some grooves deeper, some barely there. Not just words. Wait. A second code hidden in the stress of the carving? It felt like Grandpa's humor to lace answers beneath answers, a man who lined the pantry shelves twice in case the first set got raided. The stop-looking text beat like a pulse under my skin. If someone was watching, they'd seen enough to risk warning me off. Either they were afraid I'd succeed, or they were setting a hook where I could see it and wanted me to swallow anyway. I remembered another of his sayings, one that used to annoy me because it sounded like fortune cookie courage. Clever is a party trick, he'd say, eyes warm and merciless. Brave is a decision. The cane was cool under my palm. The raven's head fit my grip as if it had been measured there. I stood, grabbed my car keys, and stuffed a change of clothes into a backpack. Wallet, a granola bar. A printout of the demolition notice I'd stealth photographed at the funeral reception, when Clifford waved it around like a pennant. I yanked the shade cord. The blinds rattled up. Streetlight. Wet asphalt. A night that didn't understand it had changed. On the way out, I pressed the cane to the floor and felt the thunk echo up through my arm, a hollow note like a choir warmed itself inside the wood. I flicked the deadbolt, locked the door, then hesitated and slipped the cane's handle around my wrist the way Grandpa taught me when we walked the estate trails, and he wanted both hands free to point out something only he could see. In the stairwell, my phone vibrated again. Another unknown number, this one a photo. The rear bumper of my car taken in the dim garage beneath my building. My parking spot. The angle was from the next stall over. The message, nice keys, long drive. I swallowed air and chose anyway. The mind is a muscle. Brave is a decision. I made mine. I went to Spokane. The highway stretched like a thin gray scar through miles of dark. I drove with the windows cracked, letting the cold bite my knuckles and keep me awake. Gas station coffee, humming tires, the low hiss of rain that started somewhere past midnight. I hadn't planned for a 14-hour drive, hadn't packed properly, hadn't told anyone where I was going. That was the point. By dawn, fog crawled low over the ridges, turning the world into shapes that felt half real. The GPS counted down the miles to the estate. I hadn't seen it since I was 16, since the last summer Grandpa could still walk the gardens without leaning too hard on the cane. Back then, the place had felt enormous and permanent, like history itself. Now the road leading to it was cracked and wild with weeds, the iron gate chained but sagging, as if waiting to be opened one last time. I cut the engine. For a long minute, I just sat there, hands on the wheel, watching mist slide through the rusted bars. Ravens, or maybe crows, maybe memory, called from somewhere beyond the hedges. The sound was sharp, familiar, and utterly lonely. When I pushed the gate, the chain gave way under one hard twist. The mansion rose ahead through the fog, windows boarded, vines clawing at the stone walls. The demolition crews had already staked survey flags around the perimeter, orange markers fluttering like warnings. The gardens had gone feral. Roses grew in tangled spines. their scent thick as decay. I followed the old brick path around back, using the cane's tip to clear the overgrowth. Past the fountain, past the marble bench where Grandpa used to read to me. I could almost see him there, white hair bright in the sun, the ravens shifting behind him in the aviary. He'd named them after philosophers, Socrates, Aurelius, Descartes, and claimed they debated every morning before breakfast. When I reached the aviary fence, the door hung open. Inside, the metal perches stood bare. The air smelled of rust and old seed. Beyond the wire enclosure was the rose garden, and at its edge, exactly where the riddle said it would be, the 7 stones. They formed a near-perfect circle around the oak tree. Each was knee-high, granite, and clean, despite years of weather, as if someone had scrubbed them recently. The sight twisted something in my chest. I knelt at the center and brushed away wet leaves. Dirt clung to my nails. When the shovel hit metal 3 feet down, the sound cracked through the quiet like a gunshot. My pulse stuttered. I dug faster until the square outline of a steel box emerged, cold and mud-slick, with an electronic lock blinking awake. That was when I heard the voice. "I told you to stop looking." I spun, heart in my throat. A man stood just beyond the circle of stones, mid-50s, dressed absurdly in a dark suit splattered with mud. His face was lined, his hair silver at the temples, and his shoes looked like they belonged in an office, not here. "Who are you?" I demanded, the shovel raised like a weapon. He lifted both hands. "Someone who's been protecting your grandfather's secrets for 30 years. His tone was calm, but there was something brittle underneath. "Name's Garrison Thorne. We were partners." I didn't lower the shovel. "Business partners?" He gave a thin smile. "Among other things." The name clicked. I remembered him from the funeral, sitting in the back row, saying nothing. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "And you shouldn't open that box." "Why not?" "Because you'll destroy everything he died to protect." The words sliced the morning air. He stepped closer, slow, unthreatening. "Your grandfather found something. Something about your family. He spent his last years building a plan to keep you safe from it." "Safe from what?" "From them." He pointed toward the empty house. "Bernice, Clifford, all of them." I almost laughed, except there was no humor left in me. "They're greedy, sure, but dangerous? You have no idea." Garrison pulled a phone from his pocket, wiped the mud from the screen, and held it out. A photograph filled the display. Clifford shaking hands with a stranger beside a warehouse. "Your uncle's been laundering money for 15 years. Drug cartels, trafficking, weapons shipments, millions flowing through your grandfather's businesses." He swiped to another image. Bernice, sharp-eyed and composed, standing beside the same man, this time with cash-filled duffel bags in the frame. My stomach dropped. "No." "Yes." His voice hardened. "When your grandfather discovered it, he hired a forensic accountant. They made it look like a heart attack. He knew he was next." The shovel slipped from my fingers. The sound of it hitting the stone seemed far away. "Why didn't he go to the police?" "Because your family owns half of them," Garrison said quietly. 3 judges, 2 captains, and a district attorney. He came to me instead. I took a step back, the cold seeping through my shoes. "So this—" I nodded at the box. "What is it?" "Evidence, my base of evidence," he said. "Enough to bring them all down, but it's protected. 3 locations, 3 codes. Each must be entered in sequence." He pulled a folded paper from his jacket. "The estate is the first site. The second, his old university study. The third, your grandmother's cemetery. Each location will lead to the next." Before I could answer, headlights slashed through the trees. Garrison's face drained of color. "They found us." "How?" "Your phone." His eyes flicked toward my pocket. The text wasn't a warning. It was a trace. Engines growled down the drive. 3 black SUVs. Doors slammed. Voices barked orders. "Fan out," came a command. Bernice's voice. Unmistakable, sharp as glass. "She's here somewhere." My breath hitched. Garrison grabbed my arm. "Leave the box. You can't move it. The first code has to be entered here anyway. Come on." We barely made it past the hedges before floodlights flared, turning the garden into day. Armed men spread out in a line. Bernice stepped forward, perfect in tailored black, grief stripped away to reveal something colder. "Hello, sweetheart," she said. "I think you have something that belongs to the family." Clifford followed, his voice lazy, almost amused. "You always were too smart for your own good, Lark." I felt Garrison's hand tighten on my elbow. "This is her grandfather's property," he said. "She has every right." Bernice laughed. The property transfers to the hospital tomorrow. Tonight, we're just cleaning up loose ends. One of the men raised his weapon. Where's the box? I forced my voice steady. It's not here. The real clue leads somewhere else. Clifford's jaw flexed. Don't play games. We know what he buried. You've been watching me, I said, the realization burning through the fear. Since the funeral, Bernice admitted easily. We needed to make sure you didn't complicate our business. Her words chilled me more than the night air. Every text, every movement, watched. You killed him, I whispered. Silence. Then Bernice's shrug. He was going senile. Started talking about the FBI. We helped him along. My vision tunneled. How? The same way we dealt with his accountant, Clifford said. Clean, quick, untraceable. He checked his watch. Now tell us where the evidence is, or this gets messy. Rage burned away the last of my fear. He trusted you, I said. He was naive, Clifford snapped. Money doesn't care about blood. He turned to his men. Dig. The box is under those stones. As they moved, moonlight shifted across the circle, and I saw what they didn't. The stone's shadows forming numbers carved into the oak's bark. 072848. Grandpa's birthday. July 28th, 1948. I memorized it, pulse hammering. There's nothing here, one of the men shouted after a minute. Just dirt. Bernice's eyes narrowed at me. I told you, I said. It's just the first clue. She stared a moment longer, then nodded to Clifford. Take them to the house. We'll start again there. The zip ties bit into my wrists as they dragged us toward the mansion. Garrison stumbled beside me, a bruise spreading along his temple. Behind us, the oak tree stood silent, its bark hiding the code, its roots clutching the box we'd left buried in the earth. Inside the broken house, the air smelled of dust and secrets. They shoved me into the library and locked the door. And that was where I saw it. The chessboard on the side table, pieces arranged in a formation I hadn't seen since childhood, the sacrifice gambit. Grandpa's favorite move. The room felt alive with ghosts. Moonlight pushed through the cracks in the boarded windows, striping the old library in bars of silver and shadow. Dust motes drifted where the light touched, lazy as ash. I flexed my tied hands behind my back, wrists burning. Garrison slumped against a shelf, dazed but breathing. The chessboard sat exactly where Grandpa always kept it, on the side table by his chair. The same set I'd used as a child, white marble pieces dulled by fingerprints, black ones carved from onyx. Every piece in place except one, the White Queen, positioned for sacrifice. The sacrifice gambit. A memory hit me, Grandpa's voice, soft and sure. Sometimes, Lark, you have to give up your strongest piece to save the game. I crossed the room carefully, listening for footsteps in the hall. None. I leaned over the board. It wasn't just a chess setup. The pieces weren't aligned to a real game. They were forming angles. Coordinates, maybe, or a cipher. My gaze flicked to the portrait above the fireplace. Grandma, frozen in oil paint, her smile a secret only he understood. It hung crooked by a few millimeters. I stepped closer, using the cane's tip to nudge the frame. It clicked. The sound was mechanical, hidden, deliberate. I pulled the portrait away, and behind it was a small digital safe, twin to the one buried in the garden. A red cursor blinked, waiting for input. I breathed the numbers. 072848. Grandpa's birthday. My thumb pressed the keypad. The safe gave a soft beep, then unlocked. Inside lay a single envelope and a folded letter in his looping handwriting. My hands shook as I unfolded it. My dearest granddaughter, if you are reading this, my fears have come true. Your aunt and uncle have revealed who they truly are, and you are in danger. The box in the garden contains the proof, financial records, audio recordings, documents that can destroy their entire operation. But there is more. In my will, the charity I left everything to is not real. It is a shell company designed to expose them. When the transfer fails, it will trigger an investigation. If you are in immediate danger, use the emergency route. Behind the third bookshelf from the left, press the leather spine of Paradise Lost. It will open a passage to the tunnel system I built during the Cold War. Follow it north, half a mile. It will lead to the Riverside Cemetery, near your grandmother's grave. In the mausoleum next to hers, you will find what you need: new identification, cash, and a direct line to Agent Patricia Vance of the FBI. Trust no one else. I love you more than words can express. Grandpa, my breath caught. He'd built tunnels beneath the estate? Of course he had. The man had once installed an entire false wall in his study just to see if anyone would notice. Garrison stirred. What is it? Instructions, I said quietly, and proof he knew this was coming. A bang jolted us, the sound of a door slamming downstairs. They're coming, Garrison muttered. I scanned the shelves. Third from the left, my eyes landed on it. Rows of cracked spines, the faint glint of gold lettering. Paradise Lost. I pressed it. A deep click echoed through the wall. A narrow panel swung inward, exhaling stale air and darkness. Inside, a tunnel sloped downward, lined with stone and strung with dim emergency lights. Go, I whispered. Garrison staggered forward, but before he entered, he stopped. You first. They want me dead too, but they need you. I hesitated, then nodded. Crawling into the tunnel, I felt the stone brush my shoulders. The air smelled of metal and damp paper. Behind me, Garrison followed, sealing the panel just as voices echoed in the hall. She's in here, Clifford barked. The tunnel lights flickered on in a slow pulse, leading the way forward like breadcrumbs. The walls were lined with metal shelves stacked with boxes, jars, and photographs. I slowed. Each frame held proof. Bernice shaking hands with a man I recognized from news reports about human trafficking. Clifford signing fake charity contracts. Documents, bank transfers, shell companies. Grandpa had cataloged everything. He'd been gathering evidence for years, building a private archive under his own house. Good Lord, Garrison whispered. He kept it all. Another echo, bangs, footsteps above us. Move, I hissed. We hurried through the corridor, past rows of labeled boxes. Accountant, 2018, police payoffs, evidence videos. My mind reeled at the scale of it. He hadn't just protected me. He'd been dismantling a criminal empire piece by piece. After what felt like 30 minutes, the tunnel curved upward. A faint glimmer appeared ahead. Moonlight. We reached a metal ladder leading to a circular hatch. I pushed, and the cover gave way with a groan. Cold air rushed in. We emerged behind a line of headstones, the cemetery stretching quiet under a gray, pre-dawn sky. Riverside Cemetery. Exactly where he'd said. Mist curled over the ground like breath. A marble mausoleum stood a few yards away, my grandmother's. Beside it, smaller, unmarked, with a sleek modern lock, the one Grandpa had described. I tried the code again, 072848. The light turned green. The door opened with a soft hydraulic hiss. Inside wasn't a tomb, it was a command center. Computer monitors glowed against concrete walls. File cabinets lined the perimeter, labeled with names, dates, and case numbers. On one desk, a red phone rested beside an envelope marked, "For Lark." I picked it up. The moment the receiver touched my ear, a woman's voice answered. Agent Patricia Vance, FBI. This is Lark Arden, I said, my voice barely a whisper. My grandfather, he told me to call you. A pause, then, thank God. We've been waiting for this call for 3 years. Are you safe? I think so, for now. We're moving in on their properties as we speak, Vance said. Stay where you are. We're tracking the signal from this line. A tactical team is en route. On the monitors, multiple security feeds flickered. The estate, the garden, even interior cameras. I watched in stunned silence as black SUVs rolled up the driveway. Not my family's vehicles this time, but armored ones with flashing lights. They're here, I whispered. Good, Vance said. Do not open the door for anyone but us. Garrison sank into a chair, exhausted. Your grandfather planned everything, didn't he? I nodded slowly, down to the last riddle. Outside, the first hints of sunrise stretched over the horizon, bleeding gold into gray. And for the first time in weeks, I let myself believe I might survive this. The knock on the mausoleum door was firm, but measured. The kind of knock that doesn't ask permission so much as confirms identity. FBI, Lark Arden? I exhaled, the first real breath since the funeral. Yes. The lock disengaged with a mechanical hum. The door opened to reveal a woman in her 40s wearing a dark windbreaker with yellow lettering. Her presence filled the space, steady, watchful, confident. Agent Patricia Vance, she said, lowering her weapon slightly. We've got you. Behind her, 2 agents fanned out, scanning the tree line. The distant wail of approaching sirens rode the wind like relief disguised as chaos. Vance's gaze moved quickly across the room. The monitors, the files, the red phone. So he built it all, she murmured. He really did. I nodded. He called it a failsafe. You have no idea how right he was, she said, motioning me toward the door. We're running simultaneous raids across 3 states. Your family's entire network is collapsing as we speak. Bernice and Clifford? Already in custody. Her tone was professional, but there was an undertone. Admiration, maybe. You've done more in 48 hours than most operations manage in a year. We walked toward a line of black SUVs parked at the cemetery gate. The world outside felt unreal. Dawn filtering through mist. Agents moving in synchronized efficiency. The crunch of boots on wet gravel. As we approached the lead vehicle, Vance handed me a tablet displaying live feeds. Warehouses, homes, offices. Each one a raid in progress. These are their fronts, she said. Restaurants, shipping companies, real estate holdings, all used for laundering and trafficking. Your grandfather gave us the keys to everything. I stared at the screen. He's been helping you all this time? 3 years, she said. When he realized the scope of the operation, he came to us under an alias. Everything since, the fake will, the donation, even that riddle, was part of a coordinated sting. I stopped walking. Wait, the children's hospital? It exists, she said, but the charity listed in the will doesn't. That triggered our audit flag. When the $73 million transfer failed to process, the automatic investigation went live. The moment you called, the final confirmation was logged. The information hit me in waves, heavy, relentless. He planned this down to the second. Vance nodded. He wanted to protect you, and he wanted justice. They ushered me into the command vehicle, its interior alive with radios, screens, and murmured reports. Vance sat beside me, typing commands on a laptop. We've seized over $400 million in assets so far, she said. Your grandfather's evidence gave us everything we needed to connect them to trafficking and cartel activity. $400 million? The number felt absurd in my mouth. She turned the screen toward me. A sprawling chart of names and lines, a family tree mutated into a criminal network. Your Uncle Clifford ran the drug operations. Bernice handled trafficking through shell charities. Derek oversaw weapons imports. Melissa ran illegal gambling. Helen cooked the books. Each name pulsed red as she spoke. My stomach turned. That's my entire family. Vance's expression softened. Not all of it. What do you mean? She pulled a folder from a nearby case. Inside was a legal document with my name at the top. Your grandfather's real will, she said, filed under a trust no one ever found. I unfolded it slowly. To my beloved granddaughter, Lark Arden, I leave the total sum of my legitimate fortune, approximately $230 million, held in untainted investment accounts established before the corruption began. Use it well. Build a life free from the shadows that consumed ours. My throat tightened. He left it all to me? He wanted you to have a clean start, Vance said. Half of it is earmarked for scholarships, a quarter for anti-trafficking foundations. The rest is yours. I blinked hard, trying to process the enormity of it. He turned their greed into justice. Vance smiled faintly. He was a strategist, the best kind, one who saw people as pieces, but still played for something greater than himself. Outside the window, agents escorted Bernice in handcuffs. Her face was pale but composed, her eyes sharp as ever. She met mine through the glass, and for a heartbeat, the air between us froze. Then she smiled, slow, deliberate. A chill rippled through me. She's not afraid. Vance followed my gaze. People like her never are, not until the verdict. What if there's someone else? I asked quietly. Someone she answers to? Vance hesitated. We've seen traces of foreign transfers we can't trace yet. It's possible. But your grandfather gave us enough to burn the network down. I looked down at the folder again, at the clean ink of my name. Lark Arden, a name he'd always said meant freedom. When the convoy pulled away, the sun was rising full behind the cemetery. For the first time in days, I wasn't running. Still, the thought lingered like a shadow on the wall of my mind. The riddle carved into the cane. What was lost shall now be found. Maybe he wasn't just talking about money. Maybe he meant me. 3 months later, the courtroom smelled of varnish, sweat, and judgment. I sat in the front row beside Agent Vance as the clerk called the case number. Rows of reporters filled the benches behind us, their pens ready like drawn blades. Bernice and Clifford stood before the judge in orange jumpsuits, stripped of their armor of wealth and confidence. Yet somehow they still managed to look entitled. Like this was an inconvenience, not the collapse of an empire. State versus Clifford and Bernice Hollingsworth, the bailiff announced. The judge adjusted his glasses. Charges include money laundering, drug trafficking, conspiracy to commit murder, and first-degree homicide. The words fell heavy, echoing off marble. Bernice lifted her chin with the same defiant grace she'd worn at the funeral. Clifford glanced back toward the gallery. His eyes found me, and for the first time, I saw fear flash beneath the arrogance. Agent Vance leaned close. "This is it. The evidence your grandfather collected sealed the case." I nodded, unable to trust my voice. The prosecution presented photos, documents, audio recordings of Bernice ordering a cleanup, bank transfers linking Clifford to cartel accounts, video footage of their men delivering bribes to city officials. Each exhibit felt like another shovel of dirt thrown over the family I'd once known. When they played the last recording, Bernice's voice, cold and clear, discussing how to handle the old man, the room froze. "That's enough," the judge said quietly. "The evidence is overwhelming." He turned to the defense, who had long since run out of objections that mattered. Bernice's lawyer rose, but she stood first. "Your Honor," she said smoothly, "this is all a misunderstanding. My father was confused in his final years. He created these lies to punish us for managing the family business after he—" "Sit down," Clifford hissed. Bernice ignored him, her eyes locked on mine. "You did this." Every word struck like a slap. "You think you're righteous, Lark?" she sneered. "You think you're different? You've taken his money, his secrets, his fortune. You're part of this now, whether you admit it or not." The judge banged his gavel. "That's enough, Ms. Hollingsworth." But Bernice wasn't finished. "You don't destroy blood without staining your own hands," she shouted, as marshals closed in to restrain her. I didn't move. I just stared at her, the woman who used to braid my hair at Sunday dinners, who once promised to teach me how to make her lemon pie crust. "I didn't destroy it," I said softly. "You did." Her face twisted, and then the marshals pulled her back. The trial lasted another 2 weeks. The verdicts came fast. Guilty on all counts. Clifford and Bernice both received life sentences without parole. Derek, Melissa, and Aunt Helen each took plea deals, their sentences ranging from 15 to 25 years. When it was over, the judge addressed the courtroom. "In 30 years on this bench, I have never seen such a systematic betrayal of family and trust. These defendants built an empire on blood and deceit. Justice demands they spend the rest of their lives confronting the ruin they caused." The gavel struck once, final, echoing. It was over, or it should have been. Weeks later, I received a letter in an unmarked envelope. No return address, just my name typed neatly across the front. Inside was a single photograph, grainy, printed from security footage. It showed a man I didn't recognize stepping off a private jet, shaking hands with Clifford in an image clearly years old. On the back, a note written in careful block letters. "Not everyone has been caught. He knows your name." I stared at it for a long time. My first instinct was to call Vance, but something in me stopped. Grandpa had prepared for every outcome, but maybe this unknown piece, was the unfinished line in his riddle. That night, I sat in my new house, a modest place outside the city, with wide windows and silence I was still learning to trust. The cane rested on the shelf beside the chessboard I'd rebuilt in his honor. I traced the carvings along its spiral again, this time slower, more deliberate. Something I'd missed before caught the light. Tiny notches within the letters, almost invisible unless you looked sideways. I counted them, marking their rhythm, and realized they formed a secondary sequence. Longer, subtler. A cipher within the cipher. I decoded it over coffee and nerves. Truth never ends where we think it does. Keep looking where the ravens fly east. East. I turned toward the window. Morning light crept through, washing the horizon in gold. Ravens circled over the forest line beyond the hills, their wings black cuts against the sun. "Of course," I murmured, feeling the old rush of puzzle-solving fill my chest. "One more move, Grandpa." Agent Vance's words echoed in my head. Your grandfather wanted justice, not vengeance. Maybe, but he also wanted completion. I set the photo beside the cane, packed a small bag, and pulled my coat from the rack. Outside, the world was waking. Birds, engines, wind. I locked the door behind me, the sound sharp and clean. The game wasn't over. It had just entered its final phase. The morning air was brittle with frost as I stepped outside, the kind that makes every breath visible. The ravens above wheeled east, just as the cipher said, their calls slicing the silence. I followed their path from the driveway until my car came into view, sunlight glinting off the hood. The world looked almost normal. Neighbors walking dogs, a newspaper thudding onto a porch, the faint hiss of sprinklers. But I'd lived too long inside the illusion of normal. Behind every calm surface, something was always waiting. I slid into the driver's seat and opened the glove compartment. The cane fit perfectly there, its silver handle catching the light. I pressed my thumb against the raven's head, tracing the grooves that once spelled out my inheritance and my curse. "Where the ravens fly east," I whispered. "All right, Grandpa, one more puzzle." The GPS showed the same coordinates from the first riddle, only inverted, a trick I'd missed. When I flipped the numbers, they pointed to an old industrial site outside Spokane. It had been shut down years ago after an explosion gutted half the structure, the kind of place no one visits unless they want to disappear. I called Agent Vance. "Arden," she answered, crisp, alert. "You're up early." I found something, a message hidden in the carvings. It points east of the estate, an abandoned foundry. A pause, then, "We raided that property months ago. It was empty." "Maybe it wasn't," I said quietly. "Maybe we didn't know what to look for." She exhaled. "Send me the coordinates. I'll meet you there in 30 minutes. Don't go inside until I arrive." "Promise," I said, and hung up before she could tell me not to lie. The drive took 20 minutes. The foundry loomed against the horizon, blackened brick and rusted girders, reaching like bones through the fog. The gate was gone. My tires crunched over gravel as I pulled up beside a loading dock. It smelled of oil and rot, of time left unattended. I grabbed the cane and stepped out. My footsteps echoed. Somewhere far off, metal clanged against metal, a wind-loosened chain or something else. Inside, shafts of light filtered through holes in the roof, cutting through the dust in bright columns. I followed the ravens. There were dozens of them, nesting in the rafters, their feathers flashing like shards of ink. They watched me in eerie silence. Beneath them stood a row of rusted lockers, their doors half open. Something glinted inside one of them. I stepped closer, heartbeat hammering. It wasn't gold. It was glass, fragments of shattered vials, labels long peeled away. Chemical residue stained the shelves, faintly iridescent in the light. My stomach dropped. Poison, the kind that had killed Grandpa. And not just one vial, hundreds. The sound came from behind me, slow, deliberate footsteps crunching on grit. "I was wondering when you'd find this place." The voice was male, older, steady in a way that didn't need volume. I turned, cane raised like a weapon. A man in a long coat stood just beyond the doorway. Gray hair, eyes the color of tarnished steel. "I know you," I said. "You're the man from the photo, the one shaking Clifford's hand." He smiled. "It's gratifying to be remembered." "Who are you?" "Let's just say your grandfather and I had differing philosophies about business." "Business?" My voice cracked. "You murdered him." He tilted his head, studying me. "He was in the way. You, however, are an opportunity." I gripped the cane tighter. "You're out of your mind if you think, Think?" He interrupted smoothly. "Oh, I think constantly. That's what made your grandfather and me such good partners. He gathered evidence, I gathered power. The difference is I knew how to use it." I felt my pulse in my teeth. "You worked with Bernice and Clifford." "They worked for me," he corrected, "until they got greedy." He took a slow step closer. "And now that they're gone, the field is open. You could take their place, you know. You already have the money, the intelligence, the network, through your friend at the Bureau." I almost laughed. "You think I'd join you?" He smiled faintly. "Everyone joins someone. The only question is how much it costs." For a moment, the silence stretched taut between us. I could hear the ravens above shifting, restless. Then he added, almost gently, "Your grandfather chose the wrong side of history. You don't have to." That was when the sound of engines tore through the air. Black SUVs again, but this time real ones. FBI lights flickered through the broken windows. The man sighed, annoyed. Always so predictable. He stepped backward toward the open doorway. "Until next time, Miss Arden." And then he was gone, vanishing into the maze of concrete and steel. Vance's voice echoed seconds later. "Lark, don't move!" I lowered the cane, heart racing. He was here. She jogged into the light, weapon drawn. "Who?" "The man from the photo, the one behind all of it." Her expression hardened. "We've been chasing a ghost named Malcolm Kern, ex-intelligence. He financed your family's operations, but every time we get close, he disappears." "Well," I said, breath catching, "he's not a ghost anymore." She looked at me, then at the ravens circling above. You realize he wanted you to find this, right? He's testing you. I know, I said. And what do you want to do? The question hung there. I looked at the cane, at the faint spiral that had once led me to the truth. The answer rose inside me like something inevitable. I'm not running anymore, I said. I'm finishing what he started. Vance nodded slowly. Then we'll do it together. Outside, dawn burned through the fog, and the ravens burst into flight, black shapes rising toward the light, eastward again, where truth still waited, unfinished. The riddle wasn't over, but neither was I.